Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McRae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
I am tired, but I'm good. We've just had our little chat before recording, so that always builds me up. But I'm definitely tired today. So it's been, I haven't been sleeping as great as I normally do recently. So I'm a little tired, but I'm good. How are you?
I'm the opposite, actually. I'm really well. I had been sleeping quite poorly, and I think because as soon as I woke up, I'd be checking things on my phone, but I was aware that that was waking my brain up and then just getting into the bad habit of silly o'clock wake ups. And so I've been making myself, even though by silly o'clock, like 3:30 in the morning. And so making myself just lie there with my eyes closed until at least 5:30. And finally, my body seems to have caught up. And I'm now waking up at 5:30, which is normal. That's like okay time for me to wake up. 3:30, I'm not okay with. 5:30, I can deal with that.
Yeah, that's a very early time of day. I'm never usually up. Yeah. And I typically sleep well, so I don't know what was going on, but I keep waking up in the middle of the night recently. So, which is not like me.
No.
I don't know. So, but overall.
Good. And how have you been behaving yourself?
I have been behaving myself quite well in terms of still taking my vitamins, but I have been moving much more frequently. And not that I wasn't being consistent before and behaving myself with that, but starting to look towards triathlon season. So it's coming. And so I started to plan out and look towards what that's going to look like. And it's going to involve running. And so I ran for the first time on Wednesday since end of August. I looked it up. It's like August 29th or something like that. So I was injured actually prior to that last day of running, but that's the last day that I've ran since then. So I ran. It was a very short, very slow run, but it was a good run. And
it felt good.
It felt good. It was definitely sore afterwards, but I also worked and walked afterwards. So I had a lot of steps that day, but afterwards, waking up the next day, no residual pain. So
Yay.
It's just a matter of, as I always say, continuing to go slow. Like it feels good, but that doesn't mean I can now go do 3 miles. It was a mile, and that's all it's going to be for a few weeks at least.
Yeah.
So how have you been behaving yourself?
Yeah, kind of similar. So this is as we always say, we record in the past. So it's just been Christmas week, and I am always doing some kind of workout program and and thought this week, actually, I don't want to. And so decided to not do any particular workouts, but just do whatever felt good. And so if I woke up one morning and I wanted to do something, I would. And if I woke up and I didn't, then I would spend the day with family and friends. Not friends, we haven't seen friends. I would spend the day with Jim. And actually, I've just done things that have felt really good. So I've done a bit of yoga. Jim and I have been doing loads of walking. So I've hit at least 10,000 steps a day. And then we're allowed to see one person in a public open space for a walk. And so I've been seeing a local friend who's on her own. So some days doing up to like 25, 30,000 steps in a day. And that's felt good. I've not done it because it's exercise, but I also haven't done any particular workouts for a week, and it feels really good. And it means that next week I'll be really ready to get back on it. So that's how I've been behaving.
I love it. And I love that this really ties into what we're going to talk about. We
didn't completely unplanned
and not planned. Guys, we plan out a lot of things, but some of these things are not planned. So, and I like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about doing this series. We've just done the weight loss series, and having listened back to it, what I realized was a few times I mentioned that people often overestimate the amount of calories that they burn in a workout, and how, in terms of fat loss, exercise or planned exercise bouts or workouts really aren't that important. And as with most things in life, I should have followed it up with a disclaimer, except if I'd have done that throughout the weight loss series, the whole series would have just been me saying disclaimers. What I should have disclaimed it with, though, is no, not necessarily important for burning specific calories, but so many other benefits. So I'm really excited that this time we get to go through the exercise and movement series with you.
I'm excited too. And
Yeah.
it was funny. I was telling you, as I went through this, there's so many things that I could have put into this series. And again, we'll talk about this forever and ever on our show because we're incorporating ABA with movement and nutrition. So it's not like this is a one and done time to talk about it. So I kind of, just like Joe did with the nutrition, went back to the basics and really kind of looked at, okay, what are these basics? We're going into this new year. We're actually, when this podcast released, we're going to be already into 2021. So everyone kind of goes into it with these movement goals and weight loss goals and all of this kind of lifestyle change. And the key point of that is it needs to become a lifestyle. And I'll go into this a little bit more, but this isn't just a to hit a goal and then you're done. This is for the rest of your life, moving and staying active. And like kind of actually like Joe's behave yourself of the week, it's okay to have those weeks where you kind of wake up and you say, I'm going to do what feels good. And that's what you're going to do. And you can get to that point where you can do what feels good for a week and then you can get back and be on a plan or a program or whatever you're going to do. In the beginning, though, doing what feels good is sometimes a good thing, but also sometimes more of a challenge and actually sets you back and you end up not being as consistent. So there's definitely so many ways to approach movement, to approach exercise, and everyone's got different goals. So again, it's a very general, broad brush, but then you can go in and individualize it with a coach, with a trainer, and or with your own programming.
I love that. And I think that was the big thing. Like I tried to hit everything in the weight loss series and it's just not possible. So if you want specifics, that's when you would talk to someone who's really knowledgeable and talk to a coach and but we're just doing a general broad brush now. And
Mhm.
yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if one of your goals is to move more, to exercise more, or to tone, or to build muscle, or to lose weight, whatever these goals you may have, they're going to involve movement and exercise. I use movement as a goal for a lot of my clients when they start because sometimes they're starting with no exercise. They haven't gone to the gym, they've never lifted weights, or they don't currently follow any plan. So we're just starting with moving your body. Like that is the first step. And it's finding where your baseline is. So again, we're always going to go back to baseline because that's where we have to start. We have to know where you are to plan for where you're going. If I have a client who comes in and tells me she goes for one 30-minute walk a week, and other than that, she's at a desk job or sitting at home on Zoom, I'm not going to put her into a 5-day a week muscle building program. That's just, it's not reasonable. If that's her goal one day, that's amazing. But we're not going to start there. We're going to start where her baseline is. And right now, she's only doing 1 day a week of walking. So, really, the next step would be 2, maybe 3 days a week of walking. And that's really where people want to go out really strong, really fast. And it's not to say you can't, it's just that to sustain that over the long term and to make it effective and safe for your body, it's not going to be. So it's not to say like you can't start going to the gym 5 days a week, but you're going to be in a whole heck of a lot of a pain, a whole lot of pain. I don't even know what it's saying. A whole lot of pain, and you could potentially injure yourself. So it's really looking at where are you at right now. If you're someone that is working out multiple days a week, great. Look at where you're at with your weights, with how many reps you do, with how many rounds. It kind of goes into this concept of volume where you multiply everything together to get your volume, and then you can increase that. So there's different ways of looking at how to collect your baseline data. And again, every person is going to be different. Every single client that comes in for an initial consult is going to have different circumstances, different lifestyles, different environments, different goals. They're all going to be generally in the same categories of wanting to tone and see that muscle definition. I have a lot of clients who wearing sleeveless shirts is not something they're comfortable with. Joe's got on her sleeveless shirt right now. She's got her muscle tank on.
She did it very quickly so no one could see the lack of muscles.
They're there. They're there. But it's a huge thing. And I see it a lot with the women that I train at the gym. And it's this very challenging point to come like to share with somebody else of like, I don't feel comfortable wearing a sleeveless top. And so working on when they say they want to tone, and this is something that we hear a lot in the fitness industry of like, I want to tone up, but I don't want to look bulky or too strong or too manly or anything like this. This comes in. So it's this, and there's actually research that the two ways of going about this are produce very similar results. And I tell people, you're not going to look bulky and manly with what we're doing.
And just anecdotally, Emily, if I wanted to make myself as a woman look bulky and start to look like The Rock, how could I do that? How easy would it be? And how quickly could I do it?
It would be pretty challenging. And it's also based on genetics. There's a lot of genetic factors that go into how your muscles build and grow. So, and it would take a lot of time. And like men are very different than women. It's easier for men because the testosterone is involved, but it's not going to happen. And like you can, like and this is where women get this
Oh, sure. I'm
perspective.
just trying to make a joke out of
Oh, yeah.
say like, oh, I'm worried I'm going to get bulky. I'm like, girl, I've been trying to get bulky for 5 years. It's not that easy. Like, let me
Exactly. And
find
it's,
a secret.
yeah. The women that do look bulky, so to speak, and that people are kind of seeing this and getting afraid of it, their ultimate goal is to be like that. So they're training in a very specific way with very specific reps and weights and sets. And it's nothing that I'm going to give to the typical woman that walks into the gym and wants a trainer.
Honestly, if you've seen them on Instagram and they are famous for being, I don't know, a CrossFit athlete or whatnot, simply check the size of their neck. If they're
Mm,
female and their neck is thicker than their thighs, they've not done that through eating chicken breast and lifting weights. There's something else going in their body and
mhm,
it's not legal. So
mm,
it's really hard to get bulky as a woman.
yeah, it is. And it's interesting too because I uh, the perception of muscle, oh my gosh. The perception of muscle versus your actual strength that you have is very different. I can flex for I can do a great Instagram Flex Friday photo. However, I can't do more than 2 solid full push-ups. That's what it is. And so I think two people kind of connect these two and look at like overall muscle size of like a bicep and like, well, I have like baby biceps, so I'm not strong. And it's like, well, I've seen women who don't have biceps, but like they can do a solid push-up. It's such a this whole culture of exercise and everything has become very integrated into social media. So don't believe what you see on Instagram all the time. Joe and I are very real, but
No, but
there
it's
are,
genetic as well. Like
it
I
is.
have abs, but I have abs when I'm a size 14 and a size 6. Like I have abs all day,
Mhm.
every day because that's how I am built.
Yeah.
Whereas I pack a punch on my hips and thighs, and that's where it gets bigger for me. So just because one person has it doesn't mean that everyone will necessarily have the same or that you could
Mhm.
possibly get the same. Some people cannot build abs, even if they get really lean and work really hard. It's just not in their genes.
Yeah. And it's a lot due to like muscle and tendon and ligament length. It's due to bone length. There's so many components that go into building muscle that you are not the same as the girl next to you at the gym. And I say girls and women because I've said this before, but I work in an all women's gym. So it's very nice. There's no men there. They're not bothering us. So it's very nice, I will say. But every single person is different. So again, this is a very broad brush of what's going to happen. And again, it's all intertwined into nutrition. So go back and listen to Joe's nutrition series as well. It's just a lot of components and variables. So you're not going to find this one size fits all program and have it work for every single person.
Mm-hmm.
With that, there's different. Oh, Joe, you have a question. I can tell.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if you're going to come on to this. You started off
Mm-hmm.
by saying how people take their baseline data, where they're currently at, and what their next goals could be. And you talked about the behaviors that they're currently doing as being a one way to take their baseline. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that you would suggest they take in terms of baseline, whether it is how much they can lift or their heart rate variability or anything like that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different tests and not, I don't want to say a test. Well, it is technically a test, but evaluations and assessments. So we go through and do mobility and stability assessments and heart rate threshold assessments. So you can do a walking test where you're walking, you can have a whole conversation with the friend that lives near you. And then you're walking at a higher speed or a higher incline, and then it gets a little more challenging, and you can only say the alphabet. And then you're all out sprinting, and you can barely eke out the alphabet. So you can test these different heart rate levels. You can do based on rate of perceived exertion. So there's a couple different scales of those, but you can do 1 to 10 or 6 to 12. So there's a few different methods for looking at perceived exertion. So 10 would be like, you can't go any harder, any faster, or it's so hard, like the weight is so heavy that you can only do 1 rep. Like that's your 1 rep max. There's endurance tests, there's step tests. They're all, if you look on, you can Google them all. But there's all these different ways of looking at your baseline and where you're at and how either how much you're able to lift. So doing 1 rep max tests, that's always a challenge for me. 1 rep max or 1 RM. So people who are really looking to build that strength and really lift heavy, they're going to figure that out and then percentage wise lift different percentages of that 1 rep max. And I've done this with a few of my clients who are more into that, going in that direction. But if you're strength training or circuit training, you can do how many circuits you can get through with those certain dumbbells before the timer goes off. And then you can see that baseline and then go from there and say, okay, in 4 weeks, how many circuits can you get through with that same weight, same movement pattern? Or you may actually be able to do the same amount of circuits in that same time, but with higher weights. So looking at different variables within that.
Fun fact, when I first started working out properly as an adult, I did the fit test on the well-known program that we've all done at some point
Mm-hmm.
and threw up because it's just so awful. And I was
Oh,
so unfit. Yeah. So
oh my
I can
goodness.
now get through a fit test without throwing up.
That's progress.
Thank you.
That's some really good progress.
So
I
that was my
actually,
baseline.
yeah, and I actually have a client. She came to me and she said, when I used to work out, I get to a point where I just feel like I was going to throw up, and I was like, okay, so I don't want you hitting that level. Like that's not. We see it with athletes and things where they're working out to a point where they're throwing up. Like that's not healthy and that's not safe and okay for your body, and it's not necessary. So please don't work out to the point where you throw up. It's
No.
not okay.
And I
So
guess a quick safety thing, if you're a general person at home with a set of dumbbells, please don't do your 1 rep max at home by yourself because it's got to be done with proper form, with all the right
yes.
people and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. You need a lot of support spotting. You probably need way more dumbbells than what you have at home, and just be safe. Work with a trainer, even if it's for one session and you want to learn where that is.
Yeah.
Go with a trainer, talk with them, talk with a coach.
Dropping a barbell in your face isn't a fun
Yeah,
thing.
please don't do that. I don't want anyone getting injured
Okay,
because of
sorry, I
my
might have
podcast.
sent you off track.
No, you're good. You're good. So once you've got your baseline, that's where you're looking at. There's different types of training that you can look into. And again, we want this kind of well-rounded, holistic approach of we're not just doing one type of exercise. So there's this I got my personal training certification through ACE, which is the American Council on Exercise. But we look at this model of it's function, health, fitness, and performance. And so essentially what we want to look at first is functional training. Is how is this working for your basic ability to be stable, to be mobile, to stabilize and have mobility in your joints. I work with clients on getting up and down off the floor because functionally that is necessary to be able to do before we do lunges or getting down to do a glute bridge. Like, you need to be able to get up and down and off the ground and do a sit to stand from a chair, these basic skills. So I've even talked about, with clients, why are we doing these push and chest press when they may be older and they're like, well, what does it matter? But I need you to be able to push yourself up off the floor if you fall and nobody's around. So there's these very basic fundamental skills. But for somebody who's younger, why are we doing bicep curls? Well, you carry up all of your grocery bags to your apartment because you're only taking one trip. And I know you're only taking one trip because I don't know anyone who takes two trips for their groceries. So what are you doing? You're doing an isometric bicep hold. That's what you're doing. Guess what? Work on that, and it's not going to be as challenging to carry up the groceries up 3 flights of stairs into your Boston apartment.
Or you can put an extra bottle of wine in those bags.
Or you can add more food, an extra bottle of wine. So it's this function first. What are we doing to functionally get through your daily life? And then moving into the health portion, moving into basic movement, kind of that cardiorespiratory stability, core strength, all of this before we even move into load training. So before you even start into like a weighted lunge or a chest press, working on these very basic components. Again, working from the basics and then progressing up. And then the last one is performance. So looking at a bodybuilding program or a sports specific program. So most general population people aren't really even going to go into that phase. That's working more on like agility and power and speed and more of the athletic type. But looking at balance, looking at your cardiorespiratory endurance and abilities, looking at your strength and power endurance in terms of, can you go up multiple steps of stairs before you're completely winded or that your knees start hurting? Can you do that with weights in your hand? So can you go up the stairs with groceries? Can you balance without the railing? All of these basic, and it really does go back to that fundamental function of your daily life, because we're not just doing this for fun. I mean, some people do it because it's fun, but at the same time, like, you're working out to maintain your health and you're working out to live independently throughout your life and to be able to function in your daily life. That's why all of the movement patterns are based on basic movement patterns. So a squat is like sitting and standing out of a chair. That's a squat. A lunge is like stepping up and walking downstairs. A hinge, if you're bending and lifting to pick something up off the floor. If you're pushing, maybe overhead, you're putting a box on a shelf in a closet. Well, if you can't push that box up overhead without tipping, falling backwards because your core stability isn't there or your strength, you're going to fall. Push open a door, push yourself up off the floor. It's all basic movement patterns.
Not just for
And I
looking
think,
fly in a tank top.
what?
It's not just for looking fly in a tank top.
Exactly. Like, that's a nice plus, but at the same time, we want to build strength. So there's all different ways of training, and there's no one right or wrong way. It's more looking at the fundamentals and the basics of it and what your goals are and what you're doing to build upon the basics. And I think many times people go too quickly into the loading phase and don't work on that stability and the balance and the basic movement patterns. And so they're loading with dumbbells or with weights or barbells, but their form is not on point, is not right, either because they haven't had anybody check it, or somebody didn't really give them the full information of how it's supposed to be done, or they loaded too quickly. I've had clients come to me and they don't like personal training because they've been scarred in the past by somebody who put too much weight onto a movement and then they hurt themselves. So know that it's not always important to immediately put weight into a movement pattern, that body weight is really where you're going to start if you haven't been. And even if you have been lifting and moving and doing different programs, there's still components that maybe you're not fully aware of how your body is moving in space, or that you don't have that stability, flexibility, mobility in your body to be doing that heavy of a weight. Cool.
Mm, I like it.
Wow. Is this what it's
Please,
like to talk for the whole episode?
some water.
It's in the other room. This is the first time I didn't have it with me.
Oh no, but you're right though.
Sad.
I mean, all of what I do, it like I joke, it's very nice to look nice in a tank top, but
Mhm.
when I'm an 80-year-old lady, I want to be able to wipe my own backside and
Mhm.
carry my own groceries. I don't want to be frail and old. And Jim's dad is now 81. And yes, he had a fall recently, but it wasn't anything to do with him being frail. But he still does all of his own gardening, and he'll still walk down to the town, which is like a 40-minute walk and up and downhill. And because I mean, he used to work in PE and physical exercise, but I want to be that 82-year-old. I don't want to be an 82-year-old in a
No.
wheelchair that has a carer. It's why I do
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of people who are if you look at the baby boomer phase, people that are getting older and are in this phase of starting to lose that ability to function independently, and that's a really scary thing. We look at when we work with our kids in autism and focusing on building up their independence skills and their autonomy and their ability to function on their own, and to get it back into that phase of losing that ability to function independently. That's a really scary phase in life, is to have to depend on somebody else. And I think too, people want to be able to run around with their grandkids and chase them around and lift them up and go on the playground and the monkey bars and go for walks. So it really is this lifelong lifestyle. Maybe you're training for an event and that's a very specific micro view of exercise and training, but in general, we're working out and we're exercising and we're moving because it's what's good for our health, and it has so many health benefits that I don't really need to go into and list off, because people have a pretty good general idea. We know that it's good for our health. We know that it's good for our cardiovascular, for our bone density, for all of these things.
Mm.
It's getting to actually do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really want to look at it from a general lifestyle of, can you maintain this? And it's going to change. You're not going to do the same thing for the next 30, 40, 60 years. Like, it's going to evolve and it's going to change based on where you're at, what your life is like, what time you have available, all of these different components. So it's going to change and shift over time, but it's always going to be this moving your body and functionally doing it in a way that's going to help support your lifestyle.
And knowing what we know about as we age, losing muscle, just a factor of the
Mm,
fact that you're getting older. I'm 35 now, and I think past the age of 30, it's called sarcopenia. You lose
mhm.
3% of your muscle mass each year, which actually added up
Yeah.
over the next 20, 30, 40 years as I get older. That's a lot of muscle to lose, and
Mm,
not for lifting weights and being in the gym, but just for like lifting my kids up or
mhm.
lifting my luggage in the airport. That's a
Yeah.
lot of muscle to lose.
I have some more data on that for the next episode.
Nice.
So there's a lot of like varying data on it, but I have a lot of data on it. So yeah,
Nice.
it's a very good point though. And I think too, even looking at, I have a client, she's not a client, but she's a member of the gym, but she rows. And I think about, okay, what are all the things like going canoeing or kayaking? Like, that takes a lot of upper body strength. Or if you own your own kayaks, putting them up onto the car, bringing them down. Can you lift them and put them into the water? There's so many components of fitness that go into that. So if you look at your daily life, I always ask, what are the things that you're doing that are kind of challenging for you, or you may not even realize they're challenging, and they probably don't have to be as challenging, but what are you doing in your daily life that could feel less challenging? Or are you going up that flight of stairs that's like, you get to the top and you take a deep breath and you go, whew, that was a lot. So looking at that cardiovascular endurance and the strength in the knees, and again, just basic daily skills that should not feel painful, that should not be this huge strenuous challenge. And I worked with a client who wouldn't go up and down stairs. She would literally like save all of her stuff that needed to go from one level of the house to the other until like her one trip that she would make, because it hurt so bad to go up and down the stairs. And so we worked on that strength because she didn't have the strength in the legs and the knees to support it, and it was so painful. And not to say that every program, this is a nice little disclaimer, not every program is going to fix pain. As personal trainers, we don't fix pain, we avoid that. That's physical therapy. But looking at the strength of the muscles, sometimes it's that, sometimes it's other components, but she was able to now go up and down the stairs multiple times a day because she worked on that strength training in the legs, in the core, everywhere.
Which is, as you say, it's such functional fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what I got for now. And so our next few episodes are going to be about both strength and resistance training, muscle building, those phases. And then the third one will be, or the second one after that, but the third in the series will be about weight loss and fat loss in training. So yeah.
One thing we haven't mentioned, feels really good.
It does.
Those endorphins are no joke. And like a lot of behavior analytic, not a lot, some behavior analytic research, the kind of journal articles look at it, and non-contingent exercise reduces disruptive behaviors. And it's not to do with, they've compared it to, oh, my brain goes blank. They've essentially they've eked out all the different factors of what it could be, and they've just worked out it is just the endorphins that make you feel good. And like everyone says it, like it's the workout that you didn't want to do, and as soon as you've done it, you feel amazing and you're smiling and you feel much better for the rest of the day. It feels good.
It does. It does. And like there's going to be days where you do a workout and you're like, that was just like not great and it wasn't the best workout ever. And it's not always going to be, but you moved your body and it was more than zero. That's what I always say. It's more than if you were sitting on your couch.
Exactly. And it's what our bodies are built to do.
Yeah.
Nice. Exactly. I loved it. Okay.
Cool. Alrighty. So where can they find us?
That's the question I normally ask you because I haven't pulled up my notes quickly enough.
So
they can find us on Instagram at behaveyourselfpod. They can find Emily on Instagram at emily.a.macrae, MACRAE. You're going to be so proud of me. You can find me on Instagram at The Behavior Lady. And I'm so sick of the difference between the you and not the you in behavior. I've now signed up to both accounts. So it doesn't matter what you type in because one of them will direct you to the proper spelling of behavior. So
I like that.
It was available. So I figured, why not?
Nice.
So I'm on Instagram at The Behavior Lady. You can email us
at behaveyourselfpod@gmail.com.
Perfect. Or you could come and join our Facebook group, which we are keeping open with weekly information and training and just group accountability and support. There's lots of lovely people in there who have all got kind of similar goals and all very like-minded. Lots of other behavior analysts and people with health goals. So come and join us there. And that's just Behave Yourself podcast on Facebook.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And we are still working on those 10 reviews. And so if you go on, it's only on Apple Podcasts that you can leave a review, but I'm sure there's something on Android. I don't have an Android, guys, so I have no idea.
No, but I checked the statistics and it's something like 80% of our listeners are on Apple. So come on.
Yeah. Guys. So just go over to Apple. But so if you leave us a review, you can be entered to win a drawing after we get 10 reviews to have a 30-minute call with either myself or Joe or both of us. It's your choice. You can chat about whatever you want and it's your time. So leave us a review. It doesn't have to be anything long. Just a nice, quick little spurt about what you like.
And so many of you have sent us such gorgeous messages privately or through DMs or through the Facebook group, or whatever, which is very sweet. But please just copy and paste them. Copy and paste them straight over. It's how other people will get to kind of listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Perfect. Quick disclaimer, we're both behavior analysts and qualified in our respective fields, but this podcast is for education and information sharing only and shouldn't be taken as personal, medical, personal training, or behavioral advice or services.
Perfect.
Okay, super. See you next week for resistance and endurance and toning and all the things.
Awesome. We'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.